Welcome back, everybody. We are in our Xcode project here, and we just crushed through the onboarding flow. And now it is time to hit the core of our application. I hope you guys are still excited. We got a lot of code still to write. What we're going to do now is work on the Explore screen, and it's going to take us at least 2 videos, maybe 3 videos to finish this. In this video, we're going to focus on this top section here, which I'm going to call the Hero section. When you are building apps, the first primary section on a screen is often called the Hero section. It's kind of like this featured section that you really want to display to the users. It is pretty important when you're designing your own apps to think about what is going to be on the home screen. As we're going to talk about later in this course, the home screen, especially the top of the home screen, is the first thing that a user is going to see every single time. And this home screen is significantly more important than the content on all of the other tabs in your application. After you add analytics to your app, you will find that most people are going to spend all of their time just on the home screen, and honestly just in the first couple buttons on the home screen. So what you display to the user when they first launch your app is incredibly important. And that's why we're going to add here a feature section, so we as the business or as the developer can decide which avatars that we want to really push onto the user. Some featured avatars. Maybe these will be our best avatars that we have in our app or something like that. Let's get going. And first we're going to build this cell, and then we're going to build this whole carousel here. So when we build this cell, we're going to actually build it as a reusable component. So we already have our Explore screen set up here. But later in our app, we're going to put a bunch of logic in the Explore screen to download all of the data for this screen. We're going to load these avatars, we're going to load a bunch of other stuff and the user profile. But when I build this cell specifically, I want to make it reusable so that I could use this on any screen in my application. I don't want it to be coupled to the Explore screen. So for that reason, we're not going to build it in the Explore screen. We're going to build it as a separate component. So I'm going to come over to I think we already have a component section up here. We have an images folder. Let's put another folder in here and just call it let's call it views. So it's reusable views. Let's right click, create a new file from template, SwiftUI view, and we're going to call this the HeroCellView. And let's click create. Cell and view, I guess, kind of could mean the same thing. We could just call it the Hero view or the HeroCell. HeroCellView is a little more explicit. When we build these reusable components, we are purposely not going to couple the logic to any specific data type or dependency. So when I inject data into the HeroCellView, it is purely going to be primitive types. And I'm going to do that on purpose. Not that we have to do it, but it is something that I'm proactively going to work towards so that this cell is really easily reused for all different types of data for the rest of my application. So we can see here when we look at the cell, there is an image, there is a title, and there is a subtitle. Go ahead and pass these in. Let's pass in a title of type string, and I'm going to make all of the data here optional so that in theory I could build this cell maybe without a title, without a subtitle, or without an image. We'll make it optional and we'll give it a default value of this is some title. We'll do the same thing for subtitle. So let's copy and paste. We'll call this the subtitle. This is some subtitle that will go here. And we're going to do one more with the image name. And I'm going to give this our constants dot random image, which is that image that we had. You guys can go ahead and try to build this cell out if you want. It is an image, and then we're going to add an overlay with the title and the subtitle. And then we're going to add a gradient behind the text so that it's a little bit more eligible, a little bit more readable. Go ahead and try to build it if you want, but without further ado, I'm going to get started here. Let's build a Z-stack, and let's say if let image name. So if we have an image, we'll put our image loader view on the screen. We'll pass in our image name like we have. Now I'm going to build out this cell to be totally reusable in terms of data, but also in terms of size. So I'm not going to put a fixed frame on this image. Every time we implement the hero cell into our code base, I'm going to put a frame at that time. So for example, maybe when we implement it on this screen, we're going to set it to maybe a frame with a width of, let's do a width of 300 and a height of 200. See what that looks like. And that looks pretty similar to what it's going to look like on the screen. Let's go ahead and add a corner radius to this, corner radius 16. And on top of the entire Z stack, we'll add an overlay. We're going to look for the one with the alignment and content. The alignment, we're going to align it to the bottom left, so the bottom leading. And in the content, we're going to add our titles. So let's put a V stack here. And I'll put enter. We'll put a text. Let's do an if let title. So if we have a title, we'll put text on the screen with the title. And we'll do an if let subtitle, text on the screen with a subtitle. Let's let that compile, see what it looks like. All right, on the text, let's align the text to the leading edge, and we'll give it spacing of 4. So it's just a little bit of spacing between these two. Obviously, this is a little hard to read, so we're going to do some tweaking to the text. Oftentimes, you want to build your app where the text is just on white background, or it's on basically no background. But occasionally, you do put text on top of an image. And when you do that, you're either going to want the text to be some really dark color like black or some really light color like white. I tend to use white because then we can add a black shadow gradient behind it to really make the white pop out. So what we're going to do on the V stack is add a foreground style of .white. So the text is white, and let's also give the title a font of headline. Headline has a little bit of boldness to it, so it makes it more eligible. And the subtitle will give it a font of subheadline. So a little bit smaller than the headline. Let's push these out from the edge. So let's give this padding of 16. And as I was just saying, the white looks good. I can read it, but some people are still going to have trouble reading this. So let's add a gradient behind it so that it pops out and makes it a little bit easier to read. I'm going to add here a .background, and we'll use a linear gradient. Look for the one with the colors and the start and end point. I'm going to hold the option button and click enter. The colors, let's open the brackets and put these on multiple lines. I'm going to go color.red, and then let's go color.green, and we'll go color.orange, just so that we can see it very visibly, and I'll change the colors in a second. Let's start this at the top, and we'll go to the bottom. So I can see what this looks like. Before the gradient, let's add a .frame with a max width of infinity. So it pushes it all the way to the edge of the cell here. I think we want to align it to the leading edge as well. That might move it over a little bit. And now let's just change these colors so that the user can't even tell that we have a gradient there. So the top color is going to be color.black, opacity 0. So we're going to fade all the way down to 0. This second color we'll do black, and let's do opacity 0.3, maybe 30%. And the last one we'll also do black, and we'll do opacity a little bit darker, maybe 0.4. So now we have this nice gradient behind it. And you guys can play around with this. You could just do 0 to 0.3. You could do something much darker, maybe 0.8, something like that. I think this, as it is, looks really nice. One tip that I'll just throw out to you guys is when you are working with these gradients, I find that the gradient looks slightly better if you just change the opacity on a single color. Versus, like if we made this color.clear, it's mostly going to look the exact same, but for whatever reason, when I start animating gradients and I start really playing around with this, I find that using just one base color often looks the best. All right, and this looks pretty good. Let's update the preview just so that we have a couple examples of this cell. I'm going to put a scroll view on the screen here, and then let's put in maybe a couple of these. On this one, let's do an image name with nil, see what it looks like. So if the image name is nil, nothing's going to render because we have our if let. So let's change this to else, and let's just put a rectangle on the screen if we don't have anything. And maybe we'll fill the rectangle with our accent color. So just so that we render something in case there is no image, but there always should be an image. Let's do one example where we don't have a title, so the title is nil. We'll do another example of where the subtitle is nil. Subtitle is nil. That looks good. And then let's do one more example down here, or actually let's put it second here, where maybe the height is going to be 400 on this cell, And then we'll do one more example where the width is maybe 200, so slightly smaller. Cool. These all look pretty good. A bunch of examples here. When we build reusable components, I really like putting all of the different variations into the previews. This really helps when another developer comes in and maybe they're going to make some changes, but they're not really sure why this is optional. They're not really sure all of the different edge cases of this view. But to have it all in the preview rendering at the same time, it really does help not only yourself, but other members on the team. Lastly, let's actually just cut all this, put it in a VStack, and then make this a frame with a max width of infinity. This way the scroll is at the edge of the device. That was just annoying me a little bit. Cool. That looks good. All right, so we've built our first reusable component, and we talked a little bit about how to actually go about building these reusable components. Again, when we build these, we are using just primitive types and we are using optional types. So this cell is really reusable. Whether or not I want to use an avatar or a category or any other type of data in my app, maybe even a user, all I need to do is pass in a string for the title or even just nil, and this cell will render. That's all for this video. In the next video, we're going to actually build out the carousel and we're going to add some special logic to make that carousel reusable as well. Let's end the video with Option Command C. Again, you can also integrate and commit. And let's just say feature, and we'll add the HeroCellView. Let's stage and commit, push that up to GitHub. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.